All right, seniors. So we are talking today about the Peninsula and the Shenandoah campaigns, okay? And yesterday we talked about the breakthrough in the West with the Union invasion finally going through, the Battle of Shiloh being the first catastrophic battle of the war, and Grant's sort of more offensive, bold attitude as a general, and then his commitment to total war, which also included a willingness to sacrifice the lives of his men. We're going to see the same thing in the East, but it's going to be the Confederates in the East who are committing to a more total war-like mentality, a mentality that sacrifices high numbers of their own men in order to go on bold offensive moves. And the man responsible for that strategy was a number of them. Most primarily, Robert E. Lee is the one leading everyone in that direction, but he has a number of other commanders who are very skilled, very effective, who he also relies on. So we'll meet a couple of those guys as well. Now, I want to look at the map over here quickly, just so we all know where the action is happening. Oh, that's the wrong map. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. I have the right map here now. Okay, look. As I mentioned yesterday, the Eastern theater of conflict is roughly around here. Okay, so the Peninsula campaign is happening down here in and around between the Chesapeake Bay and Richmond. Around this grouping of rivers, the Potomac, the Rappahannock, the James, and the York rivers. Whereas the Shenandoah campaign is over here in the Shenandoah Mountains, okay, in northern Virginia, all right? Now, the main thing is going to be the Peninsula campaign is a northern invasion and assault into Virginia, moving towards Richmond, okay? The Shenandoah campaign is going to be a diversionary campaign by a rebel commander, Stonewall Jackson, to try to draw the attention of the Union troops away from this Peninsula campaign and move them over here to the Shenandoah Valley. So these two campaigns are working together. The Peninsula campaign, which is the northern offensive invasion, and the Shenandoah campaign, which is a diversionary feint by Stonewall Jackson to redirect Union soldiers, get them out of the South, pull them towards the Shenandoah Valley, so the invasion towards Richmond will fail, okay? Hang on. Okay, so some of the personalities we're going to be dealing with, that's kind of the thing we're going to focus on today. There are three persons that I really want you to think about a lot today. George McClellan, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson. And we will start with George McClellan. He is the commander general of the Union Army. And originally he was the commander of the whole army, but now he's the commander particularly of the Army of the Potomac, the army that's fighting in the Eastern theater of the war for the Union, okay? George B. McClellan is his name. Okay, now he's appointed in the aftermath of the Union's defeat at Bull Run, their first attempt, Bull Run in Manassas in 1861, same battle. The Union's attempt to invade the South the first time, which had failed. And Lincoln brought in George B. McClellan, and he has certain strengths and certain weaknesses. More weaknesses than strengths, as it turns out, but he has some strengths. So number one, he's great at getting the army ready for war. He's great at getting at drilling them and training them and getting them to be skilled and terrific soldiers and to work as a unit, and he's fantastic at it, and the soldiers love him. He's incredibly popular. All right, he's charismatic and all these things. He's a young guy. He's very popular among the soldiers. Okay. The problem is he's horrible in terms of the military command. He's very timid. He doesn't want to risk the lives of his men. He doesn't want to take any kind of bold offensive moves until he has every I dotted and T crossed, right? He doesn't take any gambles. And he always miscalculates. He always overestimates the strengths of his enemies. And he's always like playing into that fear, his own fear. So the same way that Grant would use the fear of his enemies, well, McClellan is just indulging his own fears, unlike Grant, who just kind of like shuts them off and goes forward. Okay, so McClellan is got some really terrible characteristics as a general, right? He doesn't want to attack, okay? And for months, Lincoln, as we're getting into 1862, Lincoln is asking McClellan for a plan of attack, right? He's in charge of the Army of the Potomac, situated in and around the D.C. area, protecting the capital. The rebels are, about 60 miles into Virginia, organized along the near Manassas, where they had, won the battle the year before. Very little has changed from 1861 to 2. The rebels are still there at Manassas, the Union's at D.C., and Lincoln is begging McClellan to come up with some kind of plan to attack. He doesn't do it, he delays. Finally, McClellan does come up with a plan. And it's being considered in February and March of 1862. This is the same time, right, that the breakthrough in the West is beginning to happen. Forts Donelson and Henry fall, and the Union invasion goes forward. All right, it's not the plan that Lincoln wanted. Rather than go out and attack the rebel army at Manassas, McClellan wants to do this dramatic thing where he brings the Army of the Potomac by sea down the Potomac River here, out into the Chesapeake Bay. This is Chesapeake Bay. And then swings down, and originally he wanted to come up here and move up the Rappahannock River, okay? Why did he want to do this? He wanted to situate the Army of the Potomac in between the rebel army, which is up here at Manassas, not pictured in this map here, but above my hand somewhere, the rebel army, and the rebel capital at Richmond. So he wanted to separate the rebel army from the capital, okay? Lincoln isn't so sure about this idea. Why? Because it leaves D.C. exposed, and it's not a direct offensive against the enemy. It's, again, this kind of, we're going around about the issue. We're not going to hit the enemy head on. We're not going to do it. And Lincoln's not particularly happy about it, right? Especially because it's leaving D.C. vulnerable. Another problem is that the rebel commander up at Manassas, a guy named Joseph E. Johnston, realizes, I suppose due to his scouts, what's going to happen. And so Johnston moves his army south towards Richmond, okay, and situates itself between the Rappahannock and Richmond. McClellan just adapts his plan and says, rather than going up the Rappahannock, we'll come down here and go up the James River and approach Richmond from that direction, okay? And McClellan is saying, look, I don't want to attack Manassas because they've been building up defenses all year. They've had a whole year there. We don't want to attack there. Rather, we want to move down here at Richmond and force the enemy to attack us at a place of our choosing. And if they fail to do it, then we'll just take their capital and basically the war will be over. That's McClellan's reasoning, okay? The problem was he was wrong. Manassas did not have very good defenses. They would like half as many men there as McClellan had assumed, right? He could have probably taken it, but he didn't make that bold move. So without knowledge of, how weak the defenses were at Manassas, and with the commander Johnston moving down towards Richmond, Lincoln agrees to McClellan's plan reluctantly, acquiesces reluctantly in McClellan's plan, and so the Army of the Potomac comes down to the James River and then moves up towards Richmond, okay? Now, the first obstacle that McClellan has to go through is at York. And again, he delays. The city there of York is defended by the Confederates. And, he doesn't attack. He's supposed to besiege it, bombard it. He delays that. Again, the reality was that York was very poorly defended, right? One of the rebel commander there, they sent Joseph Johnston down to York. And he says, look, only McClellan would not attack this place. It's pathetic. I don't even know who could even defend this thing, okay? So, but rather than attacking right away, McClellan delays and hesitates. When he finally does begin to bombard York, the rebels are able to escape and regroup in front of Richmond, okay? And McClellan pursues them, okay? And so then you have the Army of the Potomac is massing outside of Richmond. The capital is terrified, okay? At this point, you are in April here, and you are after the Battle of Shiloh. So there's been these catastrophic losses in the West, and now the rebels are panicking because their capital is in danger. They start drafting men into the army. They had relied only on volunteers before that, I believe. And there's a lot of panic running around in the city of Richmond, okay? Well, who comes in and as Richmond is being threatened, who comes in and comes up with a plan to defend the Confederacy? Robert E. Lee. Okay, Robert E. Lee is this very aristocratic sort of guy. He's from Arlington, Virginia, just across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. He's married into an old family. He himself is personally opposed to slavery, but nonetheless, he's fighting for the preservation of that institution because he wants to fight for his native Virginia. He's someone who lives according to this very stoic code of virtue, okay, a man of honor. All right. Well, he's also a really good general, and he's somebody who's willing to do what he has to do to win, including sacrifice the lives of his men. And so when I say good general, I mean an effective general, right? All right. So he comes up with the idea of a diversionary campaign to draw Union resources away from Richmond. He says, look, we've got he says we need a diversionary campaign. That will buy him time to come up with a plan to save Richmond. All right? He says, look, we've got Stonewall Jackson up in the Shenandoah Valley. And Stonewall Jackson already had a great reputation from Manassas the year before. And Stonewall's this very interesting figure. He's very eccentric. He, hang on. Okay, sorry, I had to check something. Anyway, Stonewall Jackson's this very eccentric guy. He wears his old army coat from the Mexican-American War. He wears his old cap from the Virginia Military Institute. And he's very religiously intense. He's a very devout Presbyterian. Kind of quiet, doesn't talk about his feelings a lot, and really doesn't explain what he's thinking to other people. All right, kind of an enigmatic figure, but an incredibly skilled military leader. All right, and what he's able to do in the Shenandoah Valley is really incredible. So between May 23rd and June 8th, he's involved in what we call the Shenandoah campaign, this diversionary tactic to draw the Union soldiers away from the attack on Richmond. Okay, and it's incredibly successful. So, first of all, Lincoln diverts one unit of soldiers away from Tennessee to go and deal with Jackson. One group was supposed to go down and join McClellan at Richmond, but they're sent up to deal with Jackson. Okay, and then there's a third group as well that Lincoln sends. So three different Union. They weren't full armies, but three different groups of Union soldiers, three different forces were sent to attack Stonewall and the Shenandoah campaign. And basically what Jackson is able to do through something called quick maneuver is just outrun all three of these guys. So Jackson moves his troops incredibly quickly. He's got foot soldiers like everyone else, but he drives them with an incredible intensity. And even though it's a really painful and intense experience to be under his command, his soldiers love him and respect him because he's right there with them, and they're accomplishing amazing things, okay? So over this period of time, May 23rd to June 8th, they move 350 miles. They're going back and forth to different locations within the Shenandoah Valley. And they move up here and they attack some Union troops they find up in the north. And they move over to the west and they attack some more Union troops in another spot. And then the next, next morning, they're in another spot entirely attacking another group. They're moving extremely quickly, okay? And they're also making use of their knowledge of the terrain and the friendly people in the area. So local spies are telling them what's going on. He's also got so the cavalry, the people on horses, the main thing they do in the Civil War is they gather intelligence on what the enemy is doing. So he's getting good intelligence from his cavalry as well. And basically what he's able to accomplish is to win 5 battles against 3 different groups of Union troops within this period of time and travel 350 miles. It's incredibly remarkable. And it's incredibly successful in what it intended to do because it does divert about 60,000 Union troops up to the Shenandoah Valley and away from the Richmond campaign. It also gives Stonewall Jackson this legendary status in the South as one of its greatest heroes. What he's able to accomplish in the Shenandoah Valley, and without doing that, is it likely that Richmond would have been conquered? Very, very possibly. Okay, but it buys Lee time to come up with a plan. So in the next lecture, we'll look at what Lee's plan was to save Richmond.